Morning, everyone. I'm here today to do a little tutorial on some wee little houses that I've been making out of chipboard. I want to preface this by saying these are not my designs, and I will be putting links in the description box below where you can download, print, and make these for yourself, and they are free. So I wanted to just get that out of the way. I cannot claim responsibility for these. So what I've done is, like I said, I have this absolutely wonderful website that I found that has just dozens and dozens of these adorable little houses. Ever since I did Angela's house kit, it's like I've gotten obsessed with creating these little houses. Now, the houses that I'm making are going to be used in my lantern. I have a huge lantern that was originally designed to be an outdoor lantern. It was electrified, and I had my husband, modify it so that I could just create it as a indoor centerpiece for Christmas. Um, so all of the little houses that I'm making are going to be used in that. And I will be showing that later on. But I just wanted to show you what I've done and how much fun they are. I'm going to be putting one together with you today. But first I want to show you some of the other ones that I've already done. This is one that I found on this website, and it's a little church. I'm not done with it, but I've just put some texture on there, put some glitter on there, and I am going to be adding some more things to it. I do have actually it's a, what do they call this? It's a transparency that I have that you can print, um, you know, images on your computer. What I'm going to be doing is taking some of that transparency and creating windows. Um, I have the transparent, whoops, church fell down, go boom. Um, these are the transparency sheets here. This is what they look like, and you can just run these through your computer. Now, you probably can't see it on here, but what I have, and I tried the Copic markers, they didn't necessarily give me the color that I wanted. So I tried it with a regular old-fashioned highlighter. And I just wanted to give the impression of like candlelight on the windows. And I do have a spot right here, and I know you can't see it, where it does look like candlelight using that. So that's going to be done later. Um, Along with this, here's another little one that is found on that website. It's even got the pattern for like the window frames, the door frames. Everything you need is in there. I will tell you that this is time consuming because, as you can see, each one of these little windows has to be cut out with an X-Acto knife. But if you have an obsession like I do, it's a work of love, a labor of love, I guess you could say. Here's another little one, just a simple little house. Again, I'm going to be putting, in all of my houses, that transparency with the yellow. I'm also going to be painting these with gesso, adding some snow texture. I probably won't get to all of that today, um, because I do want to put this one together with you, the next one. Now this one that I'm going to be doing today, and I have my glue gun on, again, I found on this website. Now I've done some of the preparation on all the pieces beforehand just because it does take time. So what I did originally, this is the first thing I did. These are all, this is the original pattern, and this is how it prints off when you print it on your computer. Okay. Now, what I did when I printed this off, the first step that I did was to take some wet glue, and I just used this Aleene's Tacky Glue, and I adhered the pattern to a full piece of chipboard, and then just set it under something heavy, let it dry, so that I could then cut it out. This is my template now to make more houses. Okay, so this is the first step, and there are several pieces in this pattern that have to be cut out. So that's how I started this process. From there, I took these pieces. Now, these pieces are going to be cut out of this Christmas paper just by, transferring them onto there, cutting them out, and also transferring. I have to glue the paper that I'm using onto the chipboard. Now, you could eliminate this step if you wanted to, but this is not really heavy scrapbook paper. So I wanted to give it some stability because hopefully I'll be able to use these and add to these, make more every year. So that's what I will do before I transfer this on here and cut these out. Okay, this is all the preparation for building the actual house. Now this one this is the original pattern. As you can see, I glued it right onto chipboard. I've cut out all of the openings, and I've also scored this with my bone folder. Well, not necessarily my bone folder. I have a stylus that I use in my ruler, um, that I just went down here and just scored it and used my ruler to keep it straight. So that was the first step. I then took another piece of chipboard, laid my pattern on here, and as you can see, I traced around the openings, okay, on to this chipboard. I've cut where it says to cut on here, okay, and trace these on here. Now I still have to cut these all out, but I've also cut a piece of pattern scrapbook paper that this is going to be the base of the house. Okay, hope I'm making sense. Like I said, it is time consuming because there's a lot of transferring that I have to do. And I am going to be cutting these out. And then what I will do is glue this on here. Okay, I know you're probably thinking you're covering up all those holes, but once I get this cut out, I can simply go on the back and use my X-Acto knife to cut out the holes and to make the slits. I will then take a pen or a pencil and transfer all of my score lines onto here. Once that's done, we can start building. Okay, so that's the process of what I'm doing right now. Now these are some more pieces. These are the roofs that, basically these are just pieces that I've already cut out. And I do have to glue them onto chipboard. But these are the pieces for the roof. This is the porch roof. This is the house roof. So I've just pre-cut. This is the chimney top. Pre-cut these pieces, and all I'll have to do is glue them onto chipboard. So that's the preparation that I've done so far. So what I'm going to do now is I have a board, just a piece of wood that I use I'm going to move my glue gun out of the way a little bit. I don't need that just yet. And let me zoom in just a little bit. There we go. That's a little better. Here. So what I'm going to do is cut these out. Okay. So that's the first step. So I'm just going to take my X-Acto knife, and I have to turn these, all different directions. And I use fairly heavy pressure so that I don't have to keep going back and forth with, you know, cutting the openings like so. And then I'll turn my paper, take the cap off there, it's going to go flying, and just continue to cut these. Now, when you're cutting these like so, like this, you want to make sure that you have a good sharp blade in your craft knife, because it just makes your life so much simpler, and it will provide a much cleaner edge. My X-Acto knife does get stuck in the wood because I do use, you know, a fair amount of pressure. And then I just make sure that my edges, as you can see, that's starting to lift right here. Okay, so I just take my X-Acto knife once I'm sure that I have this. And you can always check when you go on the back. And ignore these lines on here because I did this backwards and had to redo it. But as you can see, you can just go to the back side and just kind of pop them out. If it's not quite coming, if it doesn't just pop out, just take your craft knife and go right back in that corner or wherever it's kind of being held up so that you get nice clean edges. And see, it just pops out. So, and you can check to see too where you need to, you know, put a little bit more pressure when you look at the back side as well. Okay. Right there, it's sticking just in that one corner. There you go. So I'm going to do this with each one of these windows. Oops. You gotta be careful and try to do straight lines because Robin sometimes has trouble with that. And the reason, I don't know why, I can't tell you the reason why I've become so obsessed with these little houses. But one thing I do know is I love Christmas villages. Absolutely love them. Now, I have a house that doesn't, you know, it's not real big, so I can't accommodate a lot of the, you know, the ceramic or resin Christmas houses, and they can be quite costly when you start building your village. So I thought, you know what, if I make these myself, I can make it the size that I need. I can customize the colors that I want. It just gives you a lot of, you know, creative freedom to make the village and the houses and the churches, whatever you're using, your own. And of course, you know, any of us who craft, that's one aspect of crafting that we absolutely love because we can put our own touch on it. We can make it our own. And that to me just makes it a little more special. And these would make awesome Christmas gifts as well. If you're like me and you don't have a lot of space, you know, this is a perfect solution, I think, to being able to have one of these little villages. And, you know, you could separate your villages. You don't have to have them all in one spot. You know, and I saw, the other thing I saw, which, oh, I'll have to see if I can find the picture, but it was, someone had created a village, or bought a village, I'm not sure which one, but what they did to display it is in the corner of a room, they had shelving that was larger at the bottom, and then it gradually went up smaller so that it looked like the shape of a tree. Okay, then they took greenery and put around the edges of the shelving and along the bottom. They, you know, put faux snow and stuff on it. And that is where they set their village. It was adorable. And you could make that any size you wanted to display your village. And it's in a corner. It can be taken down or left up, whichever your heart desires. But I thought that was a really, really cool idea, especially if you're space challenged like I am. It would be an awesome way to display your villages and your little houses. And you could, you don't necessarily have to make these for, just for Christmas. You could, I'm just trimming up the edges there, guys. You could make these for, make these and make it so that it's easily changed for the seasons. You could do it and make it look like Valentine's Day, Easter, any, 4th of July, any holiday that you wanted to. You could make the houses generic and just add your embellishments for the season. So there's a lot of creative room when you start making these little things. And well, yes, they do take time. And if your hands bother you, um, it probably will take you longer to get these done because you do have to put quite a bit of pressure on here. And if you have issues with your hands, um, you might want to, it'll probably take you more time, or you could get, uh, maybe get someone else to, just cut them out for you, and then you could just decorate them. So, where there's a will, there's a way, guys. I really believe that. So, just getting these, and as you can see, it does, you have to, you do have to go slowly because Robin has a tendency to, go outside the lines a little bit. And so I've learned I just have to slow down when I'm doing these and take my time. And it's worth the effort to take your time when you're doing something, no matter what it is. But I always get excited and I get in a hurry. So I'm trying to teach myself to slow down a little bit. So there we have the windows cut out. And now I'm going to cut out the door opening. And once you print these off too, you could change this door opening really easily. Now I'm not going to because this is the actual like door trim, which goes right over top of that opening. You see that? I mean, absolutely adorable. So, but if you didn't want to do it this way, you could change the shape of your door to square, or you could even make a double door. Limitless possibilities once you start doing these. So, but I absolutely love this particular pattern just the way it is. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just following the pattern. Now see, when you get to these curved parts, do not lift up your X-Acto knife. Turn your chipboard or your paper, whatever you're using, and just very slowly go around your lines. It's when you lift up your X-Acto knife and try to, cut it that way, you end up with a little more jagged edges. And you're still going to get some, but you can take a nail file, an emery board, and you can, just trim those up. Or just take your X-Acto knife. See, I've got a little, see how I've got a little piece right here? Just take your X-Acto knife and just very carefully, run it down there. Just kind of scrape it off. When you take your X-Acto knife and just scrape it, a lot of that will just come right off there. Or take an emery board and file it out, make it smooth. Okay, so I have one more. And the round ones are the trickiest. They're the ones that take the most time, because you got to go really slowly. Now see, right there, it went a little too hard and almost cut the side of the chipboard around the window, which I don't want to have happen. But if it does happen, just remember, if you're cutting this out of chipboard, your little slips and goof ups are going to be hidden with your paper. You can also add texture to your houses so that anything that might happen, you can hide it. So don't think you got to throw it away and start all over again. Now you can see that these are not perfectly straight. It's probably where I copied the pattern. One's a little off, and I don't care. I'm not going to stress over that. Okay, so I'm going to move this out of the way, and I'm going to glue the scrapbook paper to the chipboard, and then I'll let this dry. I'm going to do that with all of my pieces. I will let this dry, because you do, and when you do this, and what I do is I just put globs on here, and I just use my finger tool to spread it around, because you do want to get good contact with your paper. You could also do these in fabric, if you so chose. There are dozens of websites that will give you free printable siding patterns that you could do. I just chose to do this one in Christmas paper, but if you wanted to do a generic one and make it more, realistic looking, you could easily print off, and you can print them right on your printer. You could easily print off the siding patterns. Now, I will caution you, if you do that, when you print it off and you go to, like if you want to seal it with Mod Podge or something, it will discolor it just a bit, because it is just ink. So you have to keep that in mind if you want to, and seal it a little bit so that it can be protected and so it can be wiped off. It will alter the color a bit, but I didn't mind that minor alteration. To me, it just gave it a more, kind of rustic look, which I love the rustic. So you can see I'm just spreading this around with my finger, and wherever you see dry spots, just add a little bit more glue. And you can see as I'm adding the glue, it is warping a little bit, and you want to make sure that you get all of your edges really well, because that's where you run into problems. Okay, so I'm just adding a wee bit more glue where there's dry spots. And when you're using wet glue, you do have a little more working time. I would never attempt this with a glue gun. Glue gun dries too quickly, number one, but have all kinds of bumps. So I'm just going to take gotta make sure that I have the right side here. Yeah. I am just going to take my scrapbook paper. This was out, I'll tell you the name of the book that I got this out of, because I can't quite remember right off the top of my head. This was just scrapbook paper from a Christmas book, a tablet, or whatever you want to call it, pack. And I'm just taking my bone folder and just trying to basically adhere all of the edges and hopefully get out any air bubbles that might be there. Okay? And this also helps push out or straighten out your chipboard. Now, as you can see, it's going to be very easy for me to just go in from the back side and cut these out with the X-Acto knife from the back. These have already been pre-cut. The openings where you have to cut to fold your house together. So these have already been done. And then once this dries, I will do that, and then I will transfer the scoring lines onto here. Okay? So what I do is I'm slipping this right underneath my laptop, because the bottom of the laptop is a little bit warm, as we know, and it's a flat surface. It's not super heavy, but you don't need it to be really heavy. Okay, So now I am going to take, this is the pattern that I've chosen for the roof and for all of the door trims, etc. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take this pattern paper and I'm going to glue it right onto the chipboard. Okay, again, using the chipboard to give it stability. Because as you can see, this is really, you could do it out of that, but they're going to, you know, there's a chance that they're going to get bent, crushed. And when you put this much time into something, you want it to last. So, again, where did I put my bone? Oh, here it is. Just going to adhere this. And you do, with the wet glue, as you know, you do have a little working time to adjust it. And right here, I don't know if you can see. Yeah, you can see. The glue, the excess glue, when you use your bone folder, will push out. Okay, so I'm just going to cut off this little end right here, so we don't need it. And I'm going to wipe up this excess glue so I don't get it all over everything. Excuse me. I love this mat. If you don't have one of these, oh, I recommend you get one because these things are awesome. Okay, so, oops, there goes my glue gun. My poor glue gun. I so abuse it. I just do. I don't have, one of the reasons that it's constantly falling over is I don't have an outlet over here to plug it into where it won't get knocked over as much. So I have to kind of improvise in order to get power to it. So here we go. And I would recommend that you use a pencil when you do this. But I couldn't find one, so I'm just using a pen. And I am just lining up the straight edges of the pattern with the straight edges on the chipboard. And I'm just going to copy or trace this, copy it onto the pattern paper, like so. And then, pardon me, I will cut this out and again transfer these score lines on here. Okay, so I'm doing, this is the door. Let me come in. I'm still a little bit far out. There we go. This is the door. And again, just placing the square edges at the very edge of the chipboard. And that just eliminates a little bit of, you know, cutting because there's a lot of cutting in these projects. So I just hold that down and transfer the lines onto my paper. And these are fussy. Another thing, another piece of advice, if you're going to be doing this pattern, before you cut out your doors, like on these smaller pieces, while you have a large piece of chipboard, like this one, cut out your openings for your smaller pieces before you cut out the actual shape. Because it just makes, you know, it just makes it easier because I did it backwards. I cut out the door and then I cut out the openings. And this is all the space that you have to hold onto when you're cutting. And it was a little bit fussy and tedious. So I would recommend not doing what I did, but just cutting it out, cutting out your openings first, and then cut out the piece itself. So there's several little pieces, and this little piece is goes right here on the attic window. And by putting your pattern directly onto chipboard. You still get all the little directions and arrows and what have you. It's a real time saver, and then it's all intact. Okay. So I'm just going to continue to trace these. Now, this particular piece is not warping like some of the other ones do, and I think it's because it was just a smaller surface. So I may be able to just go ahead and cut these out without having this, it's warped a little bit, but as it dries, you can manipulate it just by running your fingers over it and straightening it out. So here's the window frame, and I think I need 2 of these. No, 3 of these. Yeah, 3. I may have to do another piece because there are 3 windows. Okay, and I've already done, this is the door, so I need to cut 3 of these window openings or window frames out. So and as you can see, these are little teeny tiny, which is the appeal to me because I love these small little things. And, Angela, I have you to thank, sweetie, for getting me completely hooked on these little houses. Okay, so there's one. And on the littler pieces, I don't know if you can see, I did put the pattern, the same thing. I glued all the pieces to a full sheet of chipboard. And then where the transfer marks were on the outside, on these smaller pieces, I just wrote in very small letters on here, on my template, what it was for. That because you got a lot of little pieces, and it just helps me anyway, like when I put these, because I store these in Ziploc bags, my patterns. And then that way, when I go to make another one, I don't have to figure out, I mean, this one is obvious, but I just do that for future reference. Easy for me to say, right? Yeah. So, and when you first start doing this, it's kind of a trial and error thing. You learn. Some of them are very, very simple pattern pieces that don't require a lot of pieces, don't require a lot of cutting, and some others, like this one, do. But to me, the appeal is in the details. Oops, see how it slips? Just gotta line it back up. The details, the little details, like these window frames, the door. That's where I think adds that little extra special touch, is just in these details. Now I still do have, this is the front porch roof. And I will have to make another piece for that, but I'm not going to do that right now. Because I know there's going to be a part 2 and maybe even a part 3 to this. Putting it all together. Because like I said, I've said it several times, this does take time. And you just have to have patience to get it all done. So there we have the window frames. Now these pieces here, there's really nothing to transfer to. This one does need the transfer lines for the scoring. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to use my pen to mark on here because I don't want the ink showing. What I'm going to do is just take my stylus and I'm going to line this back up like so. Oops, I see I missed a spot here where the tab goes. Oops. Okay, so I'm just going to take my stylus and I'm going to move this down just a hair, and I'm just going to mark on the top and the bottom where the score lines are, rather than trying to, you know, use a pencil or a pen to mark on here, because I want it to be as clean as possible. So then we did the top, so now I'm just going to lift it up just a wee bit so that I can do the same thing on the bottom, just making a score line here. I can lift this up just a bit. And then what I'll do is take my ruler and line up the top and the bottom and just do my score lines that way. Again, easier to do before you know, try to cut it all out and do it with that little piece, okay? So, where I have those little indentations, I can see them on here. You can't, I know you can't see them, but I can see them where I just pushed it in with the stylus. And this is how I did the score marks on every piece. Whoops, lost where I was at, guys. Easy to do. Okay, so just going back like once or twice. Okay, let me find my other score marks. Okay, now you can't see that, but it is done. I'm going to set that rough piece over here with some other pieces. Okay, so there we have all of those pieces, and as you can see, it's pretty straight, didn't warp. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and cut these out. And I'm going to do what I started to do what I told y'all not to do. I'm going to back it up a little bit. I want to cut out my openings before I cut out the shapes. Okay, so I'm going to take the X-Acto knife and just start cutting out my openings. That way, when I have more surface to work with while I'm cutting my opening. Whoops, see? It's very easy to slip with your craft knife when you're doing this. Now, because this is paper, you could take your inks and kind of go around it just to give that age look, which I may very well do. That was a thought that just popped into my head. Just to give it that more finished look so you don't have rough edges that are showing. Or you could take some sort of little, you know, you could use laces, you could use pearls, any kind of embellishment that you want to use around your openings, just to give it that little extra touch. So, and now you can see why I suggest that you cut out these little tiny things before you cut out your shapes. You just have more surface to hold on to while you're doing it. Because let me tell ya, doing it the way Robin did it was kind of scary and a little bit dangerous, because you're working with a very sharp object in a little tiny space and your fingers are right there. Was not smart. Not one of my brighter moments. But, like I said, experimentation, it's a learning curve. So I learned it. Okay, now I'm going to turn this over and see where I need to cut more. And when it starts to release, it'll just kind of pop out on its own, and then you can just sort of help it. Basically, where you're going to have to pay the most attention to is your little corners, because that's where it tends to get stuck. Let's see, like right here. Just take your craft knife and just kind of hold it down. But as you can see, or I'll show you here in just a second, there are some raw edges when you're cutting that you don't necessarily want to see. You want to give it that finished look. So I probably will use some of my inks to accomplish that. So let me hold this up. I don't know if you can see that, but it is, some of the paper shows right here and like right here. So I probably will just take some, you know, like a Q-tip. You can't really use a dauber on these smaller pieces, so I'll just take a Q-tip and just kind of use the inks on here just to diminish the look of that being raw. Okay, so now I'm just going to cut out these openings. And there are so many. Guys, it'll blow your mind when you start looking at miniature stuff that you can get, and also dozens and dozens and dozens of DIY miniature sites that you just Google for, you know, like furniture, embellishments, like making little teeny tiny wreaths, and just, it's mind-boggling, literally mind-boggling. That's why I said this could become an obsession. It has for me. But the site that I found this on, and this is another tip, if you're looking, this site was built basically from a gentleman who does, you know, builds railroads. And these little miniature houses and all of the other things that he has on his website are designed to be used with his, you know, his railroad, his model railroad. So check that out too. If you get stuck on looking at miniatures, check out, you know, like railroads, or dioramas is another good place to look at, because you can create small boxes with dioramas. There's tons of those as well. So just to give you guys an idea of, you know, ways that you can search for patterns. And these were all free to, I'm sure you, I mean, I would never think of selling a pattern because it wasn't mine. But these are all free for you to use. And I am, oh, so grateful to people who take the time to create these and then freely share with others. I just think that is wonderful. So I want to thank all of you who do that, because it's just such a special gift, because we admire what other people do. And, you know, sometimes we just want to do it. So I want to thank everyone who does that. This gentleman, I believe his name is Paul. It'll tell you about him on the website, and what he does with them. I mean, there are so many buildings. I even found and downloaded a pattern for a barn. He even has a barn. He has a schoolhouse, I think. He has a train station. Just unbelievable amount of patterns. Oh, he also has pages where he shows you how to make texture, you know, do-it-yourself texture on your buildings that you make, which is absolutely phenomenal. You know, there are texture products out there that are ready-made. We all know that. We've probably, you know, at one point or another used them. But the fact of the matter is, guys, those are expensive. And when you're trying to create on a budget, which a lot of us are, you want to try and find ways to duplicate the same effect without having to spend an arm and a leg to do so. Like I made my own gesso. Again, dozens of recipes out there for making your own gesso, making your own Mod Podge, making your own glitter snow, texture paste. I'm having a real problem with this one. It doesn't want to cooperate. So, just look it up, check it out, and see, you know, what's available for you to make your own. Now, like for the gesso, one recipe that I've seen, they use like talcum powder or baby powder and like Elmer's glue and white paint. And you just mix it all together, and you can adjust the texture, the thickness, by doing it that way. And I did make up a batch to paint my little houses with. And this one I'm not going to paint. As you can see, I've got some little fussies here. Didn't quite cut out the way that I wanted them to. But I did make my own to paint these houses with. And I don't quite know yet what kind of embellishments are going to go with it. But when I do the part where I'm putting this all together, we'll figure that out. But I do have a set of miniature battery operated lights. They're white. That I want to arrange this so that I have a light inside each house to illuminate it. Okay, it is definitely going to be a winter scene for Christmas, but I could easily create more houses because I am making all of mine right now for Christmas. I can easily make more houses and change it up if I want to. Don't know if I'll get that carried away, but I could. I could. The other thing with the lantern is I've already turned it into basically a snowy theme, so it would be kind of hard to, use that same lantern to make it for other seasons, but hey, where there's one, there's bound to be more. Or you could create a little diorama, out of a cardboard box, shoebox, any kind of box. You can make your own diorama. Like, and those are just like little settings, like a room setting or themed setting of some sort to display your pieces in. And you could do that same thing with these too. You could make little, little furniture. And if you have not watched Ruby Lockwood's miniature Santa house, you guys have to see this. She built that literally from scratch, from the ground up. And her base for her house is a cardboard box. I'll put the link in the description box below. So if you have not seen that, do yourself a favor and check it out because it is just incredible. I mean, that house is so realistic looking. And again, guys, it's all about the details. It's about the time. I know that particular project, it was a family project too, which was so cool. Ruby's husband and her son-in-law, they all got involved. And that makes it really special. So, I know that it took Ruby a good 2 weeks to, get that to the point where she could actually call it finished, where she was able to decorate and put in her furniture and her little people. She has a Santa and a Mrs. Claus and the cutest little naughty elves. Well, not naughty, but, they have a lot of personality. One's laying back, one's hanging onto a Christmas tree. They're just the cutest little things in their expressions. So, that was another cliffhanger for me. And then Angela did Little Village Houses. She had purchased from them. There are sites where you can purchase these, you know, or similar ready-made, so you don't have to go through all these steps. And Angela did one using I think it was Little Village Houses. She ordered the actual houses and then decorated it. And that one is absolutely beautiful. So I will be putting the links to both of those houses in the description box so that you can check it out. And they're great for inspiration. I know we all love to create and we get inspired by things that we see other people do, and it starts our wheels turning and we're going, oh, I could do this, I could do that. So that's why we love to share, and we love for you to share with us. Like, if you do create some of these, we would love to see what you make, because, you know, your mind is only limited to so many ideas, and one person, you know, what one person sees, another one may see something totally different, and then you're going, why didn't I think of that? Because, well, I know why I didn't, because my little brain cell gets overloaded. So, okay, I have those pieces cut out, and now I'm just going to cut the actual pieces out, and then I'm going to check on my house base. And just, oops, sorry guys, I was out of frame. I'm just cutting in between each one of these, and then I'll trim them up. And when I get to areas like this that require cutting and it's a small space, I just leave that for last. And I cut all the way across, like so. Come on there. There we go. And then when I cut this, I just do one side at a time, going in one direction, and then turn it and do the opposite on the other opening. And there we have a little holdout. So there you go. This is the chimney base right here. So I'm going to set that aside because that one is done. And now I'm just going to cut right down the other side of this. As you can see, if you've cut far enough up, they will just fall off. You just try to find ways that eliminate as much cutting as possible because there is a lot of it in here. So, and I have one more, couple more edges. I have the bottom. I just need to trim up. And then, you see how you could make that a square door? I still like the rounded door, so I'm going to follow the lines and just cut that into that shape. So there you have your door. Now let's see. Here is the attic window. So I'm just going to cut that out. And again, I will be, you know, inking my edges when I get ready to, before I put it together. Okay, and here we have one more line. So these are your window frames. And there you have your pieces cut out. And I'm making, oh, let me tell you, ladies, when you're doing this, ladies and gentlemen, when you're doing this, oh, it makes a mess. Not even gonna lie. It makes a big old mess. But you know what? We can clean messes up. And when we're done, we have a beautiful project. So I don't mind cleaning up the messes. Excuse me, let me take a drink here. My mouth feels like the Mojave Desert. Let's just take a little sneak peek and see how our... we're good. Okay, so I need to bring my board back. My little cutting board, and I'm going to take my X-Acto knife, go to the back side of my piece, okay, and I'm just going to cut out the paper around the openings. Boy, you can really see how crooked these are when you go from the back. It's okay. Now on my Christmas house, the kit that Angela came up with, I did make little, little flower boxes, which you could easily do on any of these houses. Just make little flower boxes and that'll cover up some of your unevenness too. It's all kinds of ways to disguise something that's not quite exactly how you want it to look. Because I'm telling you guys, there's no way that you're going to get 100% perfection when you're doing this. And I realized that a long time ago and took the pressure off myself by expecting it to be perfect. Because there's no such thing. So you just do the best you can. And, you know, that quirkiness where, you know, you've got little blips, to me, just adds to the charm and shows that it is a handcrafted piece. So that's just how, that's my story and I'm sticking to it. You can use that story if you want. That works for me. Just pick your battles and, you know, relax with it. These are supposed to be fun projects. So, you know, eliminate the idea of perfection. Perfection does not exist. So, do the best you can. It's yours. And love it. Even with its little, you know, quirky mishaps. Because they're going to happen, guys. They're just going to happen. So just embrace it. Learn to adapt to it. And your life will be a lot less stressful. Don't stress the little things. Now, I know some of you are probably thinking, that woman is crazy. There's no way I would spend that much time doing all that. And absolutely, this is not for everybody. I'll guarantee you that. Not, you know, not everybody would want to sit here and cut all these little tiny openings and pieces and what have you out. And that's fine. That's why they have places like, I think it's the Little Village something. I'll put a link. But that's why there are people that sell these kits. For those who don't want to go through all this tedious work of creating your own. So again, those companies that do that, those companies that, you know, create these beautiful little houses, that create the furnishings and the embellishments, thank you, thank you, thank you. We greatly appreciate you and all your efforts. And I think when you watch a process like this, to see what goes in to creating those pieces, it kind of gives you an appreciation for how long it takes. And because it is labor intensive, the more detailed they are, the more expensive they're going to be for you to buy. But when you watch a process about how it's actually done, especially by hand, you kind of get an understanding of why they charge what they do. Now, I'm sure maybe some of them have, you know, machines that do these in mass. And boy, I'll tell you, that would be awesome to have one of those, because I could go hog wild. The other thing that I am considering, well, I am going to do it, I just have to save my pennies, is I want to get like a silhouette, because I could, you know, make my own patterns for my own houses or whatever, and then just print it out, you know, scan it into the silhouette, and then have the silhouette cut it. So it eliminates this step, which I think would be completely awesome. Okay, so there we have the little openings. Okay, now as you can, I don't know if you can you see that little split right there? I am just going to, I'm going to use my scissors and just cut right down that split, because this is the area where you know, these are like tabs. So, and this is why I did this ahead of time on the chipboard, so that all I'll have to do now is transfer the score lines on here. Okay, so let's do that. Again, I use this template, this pattern, and I look at this as I go to do my scoring. Now, as you can see, this tab and this tab have straight lines. Okay, so it's very easy just to go to the edge of your, where you've cut, and just do the score lines from side to side. Okay, so that's, oops, I'm not going to do that with the ink pen. Okay, so I am, and I know this is really hard for you guys to see, just simply because it's, you know, it's on pattern paper. But I'm just going to take my stylus and just do the score lines. Okay, same thing here. And I'm lining this side up with this side so that they're straight across. And you just go from opening to opening where you've cut it. So that's that part, okay? Now, this part down here, if you can see this, this is the base of your house, okay? Now, you don't have to do the score line. This particular one has a foundation with fences and so on around it. And when I send you the link, you'll see what I mean. This gets even more detailed, but I'm not doing that today. So I am going to score this, because I am going to go, you know, the full Monty, and make the base to go along with it. But you wouldn't have to. If you didn't want to put the porch and all the other stuff on it, you could have cut this off right here, or just make it a little bit taller and leave that on there and just not score it. But I am going to score it. So I'm going to do the same thing that I did on the other pieces. I'm going to line up my pieces here and just move this down just a tad and make my score marks with my stylus. Do the other, same thing on the other side. And then I'll use my ruler to connect them. Okay. Alright, so there we have that. Now the next one are these two score lines, right, or three. This is what you fold. These lines right here are what you fold to create your house. These are easy because these just go from where your slit is down to the bottom. So you don't really need to transfer that. You just kind of have to take your ruler. I use the bottom of my ruler to make sure that when I'm doing my lines, it is as straight as I possibly can get them. And that just gives me, you know, kind of a registration mark. And I'm going to move back just a hair so that my score line evens up with my cut line. And just like that. Okay. So this one, yeah, it's cut. Okay. Why does that look like it? Oh, because I didn't cut it all the way. Duh. There we go. Oops. These pattern pieces are a little bit difficult to see your markings on. Okay. And one more. Now the other markings that are on here are simply for placement of your roof pieces. So I'm not too concerned about that at the moment, but I do think that I will find a pencil, because I definitely do not want to use ink if I can avoid it, to transfer these markings on it. You know what I'm going to do? Forget that. I'm going to use a stylus. So, as you can see, you have a registration mark here for your porch roof, and then here for your actual roof. Okay? So, what I'm going to do again, lay my pattern piece on here, just like so, and just make a dot where the peaks go. Okay? Like right here. Just make yourself a mark, because that's your center point right here. And then from there, as you can see, the peaks go down to where you've got your slits. So that's fairly easy to do for the actual roof. So I'm going to do that. All right. So what you want to do is line your ruler up with your center point right on the edge of your ruler, and then you just move your ruler so that it brings you to the edge of that cut mark, and just score. And you do the exact same thing on the other side. I'm going to make a mark over here so that I can see where it needs to stop. Right there. And then again, take my ruler, line it up with that edge, line it up here, and score. Okay, so there I have my score marks for that piece. I'm going to do the exact same thing on here. I made my little registration mark where the peak is. So I'm going to find that. There it is. And I'm going to go to where the sides divide to create the house. And just score. Do the exact same thing on this side. Okay. And you don't want to use a whole lot of pressure when you're doing this part, because it can tear your paper. Found that out the hard way. So all but the roof line for the door has been done. Okay, now in order to accomplish that, what you're going to have to do is find registration marks to create this. I'm not going to do that because I can lay this, once I do my porch roof, I can just simply, use this as a reference point to glue my porch roof on. I'm not going to worry about transferring that. So I am going to gently, and you want to do this very gently, because you don't want your paper to tear. I'm just going to gently fold these on the fold lines, like so. Okay. I'm also going to do the same thing on the bottom, because this is where my base of my house is going to be. And just very gently bending these up, just real slowly, because if you try to do this too fast or do it all at once, you could very easily, split your paper. So you just want to gradually do it a little at a time so that you're breaking down the fibers and stuff in your chipboard. Okay, so there we have the bottom. I've done the sides, and now I'm going to do the flaps that fold down. I'm out of frame, sorry guys. And just gently fold those down as well. Okay, so we have those. Now I'm going to do the roof peaks, and this again you're going to have to do very gently, so as not to tear your paper. So that's all I'm doing. As you can see, it is starting to crinkle a little bit, but again, and there are some little tiny tears right there. Once I go over this with the the distress inks, and once the roof is on, you're really not going to see that. Okay, so again, very gently. This is the part that you really got to take your time with. Just slowly manipulate your paper on the score lines to get your lines. And as you can see, I am not, just pushing it all the way back all at once. I'll just keep working with it from one side to the other, like so, just to get those fold lines nice and solid. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing on the sides, just gently, oh, my frame, just gently coaxing it to get it to go where that one's good, that one's good. Okay, so now you can see when you fold this together, this is the beginning of your house, and that's the size that it's going to be. Okay, so these will fold in like this, your flaps there, and this is going to be your rough peak. See? And that's where you're going to attach your roof. So we have that done. We have, and let me just show you, I'll open this back up so you can see it better. But this is how it's going to look with your window frames on it. Okay, and let me, because this is one of my favorite pieces, let me show you what the door looks like when you put it on. How cute is the door? I love the door. And then we have the trim for the attic window. Absolutely adorable. I love these pieces. We have one more piece to, this is the chimney. Will go on the top of the roof. Again, I'm just gently coaxing it on the score lines just to start that folding process. Okay. And then you just keep going back. See, that one moves easily. That one does. So does that one. Okay. Now, if you look on your, this is the rough piece. You see you have this side is perfectly straight. This side is cut kind of in an angle. This is your tab. This is what you glue. That tab goes inside this one, and you glue that together. And this creates your chimney base. See, this part glues right to the peak of the roof. So that is your chimney piece right there. And then I have another piece that this is the roof. And I did do this in different paper just to be different. But that's the roof cap. That'll go right on there like that, so that it looks like a chimney. Okay, so those are the pieces that I have done right now. You've gotten you to this step. So I'm going to pause here, and I'm going to paint my little houses with gesso. Okay, so that those are ready. I'm going to cut my film. Actually, I can do the film right now. I think. All I'm going to do is cut this film, this transparency. I'm just going to cut pieces, small pieces, and I'll use my, these pieces right here as templates to cut this out. And then I can just glue the window or the transparency to the back. And once I do that, then I can use my highlighter to give it that coloring. So I will, after I cut these out, I will be back to show you that. Okay, so I'll be back in just a minute. Okay, I'm back. What I've done is gone ahead and just glued the sides together. I glued the bottom together. As you can see, there's an opening. It's a bit uneven, but this is where the base comes in. Okay, I'm going to create the base, and it has a fence, that type of thing that's going to go around it. And I'm going to create a little winter scene with this one. But I won't, I'll make the base, but I'll come back to do the winter scene with you. I just wanted to finish up this basic part of the house. And all I did was fold along the score lines that we did. And, oh geez, I can't even tell where it goes together now. One of these sides on here, I think it was, I think right here, I glued it together with hot glue. Glued the tabs together here, and that's all I did is just glue where the two corners meet. And then the tabs fold in on the inside, the flaps that we cut fold in. I just glued those together, folded this in, okay? And what I'm going to do, because as you can see, it flaps open. So what I'm going to do is just where these two pieces meet on both sides, I'm just going to put one little dot of glue on each side and then put the roof on, okay? So let me see if my glue gun is heated enough to accomplish this. And when I'm doing this, I'm kind of making sure that my pieces are even. I need to thin this one in a little bit. Sorry about that. That's my husband making noise. Okay, so I'm just gonna put a little dab of glue right there. And I'm not worried about there being excess glue because the roof is gonna go over top of this. See how I glued that little piece? It looks sort of like a milk carton right now. So, I'm going to do the same thing on this side. And I have not done the antiquing on this yet either. But I will at some point. Actually, if you were going to do the antiquing, don't do what I did. I'm a good example of what not to do. You could antique some of these areas before you glue it together. When you fold it on your score lines, just take your ink and just kind of do the edges. So there we have that part glued together. And I just glued that together so you can see that these are kind of standing upright, because when I tried the roof on, they were kind of flopping around a little bit. So I'm going to put the roof on like so. And that's what these tabs are for here, to adhere your roof to it. Okay, so I am going to add some glue, and I'm not being shy with it because I want this to get a good grip. Like so. And then I'm just going to eyeball to make sure this goes into the center, and put it on there and hold. Like so. So there we have the roof on it. And I can see a couple of little areas, and not worrying about the glue showing on here, because this is going to be a winter scene. And there's going to be snow and so on that's going to be hiding a lot of this, okay? So there we have the roof. Now what I want to do is, I've been excited. Oh, I also put in the transparency, and it does have a slight yellow tint, and I'll show you what I do with it. I have a little battery operated candle right here that when you put it, I'll just kind of set it in here. I don't know if you can see that, but it does kind of give a yellow glow. And I'm not going to use a battery operated tea light in this. Let's see if I can get it. See how it gives the yellow glow? Not with the bulb. Just a slight cast of yellow. This will be where the Christmas lights will go to give that. This is, a very soft light, so the Christmas lights are a little bit brighter, but you could do what Little House does with their, the little village houses. They actually have a hole here that you could cut and actually insert your battery operated tea light, like right up in here, somewhere like that. You could put that in there and use it that way. If you wanted to set this, someplace where it was independent, you could put that in there too. So that's just an option. But I am going to glue the little door frame on. And I'm not going to use hot glue because I want to make sure that I have time to move this around to get it situated where I want it. Okay, like so. And then just hold that for a second. Once this is adheres and placed where I want it, I can go back later on and, tack this down more if I need to. But I wanted that time to be able to position that where I wanted it. Same thing with the windows. We have all of our little window frames. Use wet glue, she said. It'll be easy, she said. Oh, do y'all see what I did? Look, I'm shaking this and pushing and, mocking the glue. What did Robin not do? Robin didn't take top off. Ta-da! Now maybe we'll get glue. What do you think? Jeez Louise. Yeah, look at there. See how much better it works when you take the top off? Wowzer. Okay. Do not touch the top again, Robin. Now, like I said earlier, you would not have to use Christmas paper at all because, and I'm just using my fingernail to get any excess glue that might run out when I press that down. And I can see right now this is going to need some more glue. Right, sure. And I'll just hold that, but you can see, look how much, look at what a difference that makes when you get your trim on. And you could do a much darker trim, you know, really have a high contrast between your house and your trim. So there we go. I'll worry about that later if I need to. Now here's the attic window trim. And as I said earlier, I will be putting the link to the wonderful sites where I found these patterns at. So you guys can make them too if you would like. Someday, I hope that my husband and I can get back to making the houses and the bird houses that we used to make that were kind of models of people's homes, where we used real woods and stones and that kind of thing, because that is so much fun and I just love working with miniatures. So let me just get other side windows. I mean, literally, the sky's the limit when you start working with these things. Okay, there we have the side window. Do the other side window. And then we have the chimney. And what I did with the transparency is I just cut, you know, small strips and glued them to the inside, the back of the house, and then just colored both sides with that highlighter. So there you have all of your trims on the windows. Oops, fingers in the way. Like so. Now, I did finish the chimney. This is how the chimney goes together. You just fold on the scored lines and then glue those ends together. And there's the chimney cap. And that's going to go, oops, right on the roof like so. Now this I am going to use hot glue on because there are gaps in here, as you can see. That's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. So I'm just going to add some glue like so. And just hold it till it's attached firmly. Okay, there we go. Now we have the chimney on. Isn't that cute? Now I do have this roof. Now this roof is going to go right here. This is the porch roof. Okay. So I'm going to attempt to glue this on here. Now when you see the pattern, if you choose to do this, there are, and I'll show you the little pieces that also come with this pattern to create the little porch posts that go up underneath here. Okay, they'll go up underneath here like so to hold it up. Now I haven't decided whether I'm going to use those or not. That's why I haven't done anything with them. But these do come on the pattern, along with this just cracked me up. Look, these are steps. Ooh, wrong way. See, steps. Look how little that is. You can see my finger? These come in the pattern. These I will be using. Let's see what else we have. Oh, this is for your fence posts. I mean, look at that. Absolutely unbelievably adorable. So yeah, there's several other tiny little pieces that I have not utilized yet that do come printed off when you print off the pattern. So I'm just going to turn this towards me a bit, guys, and I'm going to add some hot glue right on the edge of this little porch roof, and then kind of eyeball position it where I want it to go, like that. And of course the underside is just regular pattern paper, but I would recommend that you probably do both sides of your porch roof. I'll fix this with something, but I would do both sides of your roofs and your chimney cap, because on the underside it is just, you know, chipboard. But there you have the little house so far. I think it is absolute. I love this. Now this is the first time, guys. I haven't made this pattern before, so I had no clue what it was going to look like, because the picture that off of the site where I got this from, it's similar but not quite the same as this. So I wasn't really sure how it was going to come out. So that's what we have so far. Once I get the base and everything cut out, I will come back and we'll put the base together and decorate it. Okay, so that's the first part. And then the other little houses that I showed, I haven't put the window cling in yet. I have to do that, but I did paint them with some texturized gesso just to give it some, it's very rough, and that's really what I wanted. The texturized gesso was just a teeny tiny little bit of sand in it, just to make it kind of like a stucco kind of feel. And the same on this one. Just gave it a coat of that too. And if you guys are looking at this roof and see how funny it is, it doesn't look funny from this angle, but if you look straight on, it looks really funny. And I did that on purpose because I wanted it to be a little quirky. Just a little quirky, because I like quirky. Okay, so I didn't lose my mind. I didn't not follow directions. When I was putting the roof together, I set it on here and it made me giggle, because it really is kind of upside down. And because it made me giggle, I thought, I'm leaving it. So I didn't lose my mind. I did it on purpose. Okay, so there we have. Oh, and I've also got some more trims that I'm cutting out for this little house, the trims. So I still have to do these, so I'll do those, and I'll put in the window clings and everything on those little houses, so that we're all ready to decorate our little village. So, oh, and I'm going to do the same thing in the church, but I have another idea that I want to try. I don't know if it's going to work, but I want to try it. So there we have it, guys. I want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to watch this. And I do apologize for this not getting posted yesterday, but it was just a complete impossibility because my internet has been on the fritz of late. And sometimes I have a signal, and sometimes I don't. And yesterday was just a really, really emotional day. Extremely emotional day for many reasons. One of which is there are a lot of people who are going through so many hard times right now, and this is the holiday season, and it just really got to be one of those days where you're overwhelmed by sadness. our dear Pam has lost her grandmother. So if you could lift her and her family up in prayer, I would so appreciate that. I know many of you have seen the post about little Dakota, who is having seizures and life-flighted. I do not know Dakota. I do not know the details, nor have I had an update. But as parents and grandparents, I am so sorry. We can appreciate the terror that would involve. And again, lifting up Susan. I know she had surgery. Waiting to hear an update. I know she was scheduled to come home. I don't know if she has. So just keep those who are struggling and hurting and are ill. I think that was a combination of sick and ill together, and it came out sick. All right, it was, Anyway, keep them in your thoughts, keep them in your prayers. Be kind to one another, lift each other up, love one another, and I love you. And I will be back shortly with another video. God bless. Bye bye.